Tell me about STFU. Why shut the fuck up?
Well, that's a great story. In 2020, for those of you that know me, I've been an academic and a college professor and a researcher and a scientist, and I come from a very linear Western approach. And as I've come up in the Huna tradition and learned more esoteric tools in hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming and biofeedback and past life regression, and I've adopted these Huna, Huna, the Hawaiian shamanistic tradition. And then I've had a couple near death experiences along the way. That's a whole nother story. And I've become more intuitive. And I've noticed that my intuition had been and has been evolving. And when I got out of my way and I would just shut up, and usually after a few glasses of wine, I could be super psychic, and intuitive about things. And I created a course in 2020 called Introduction to Psychic Development at the request of other students saying, we've watched you. Is there a method? Is there something we can do to enhance and just improve our intuition? Because there's a prevailing philosophy that you either have it or you don't. You're born psychic or you're not. And I am proof that you're not born psychic, or maybe we are all born psychic and that we evolve somehow. I was a really psychic kid, apparently, super like, imaginary friends and talking to my dead father on the other side. And then we shut it down. And so I've come to the belief that all of us are intuitive or have a capacity to be intuitive, but that we are in a Western society so hammered with thinking, with information and data that we just shut that part of us down. And so the request was, could you create a course uh, in how to develop that? So that started in June of 2020 in San Diego, called Introduction to Psychic Development, and it was successful. People got, I think we had 40 students, and it was on the dawn of COVID, and the 40, we had to limit it to 40. It was in a big kind of an area, and they made us sit, if you remember this, sit 6 feet apart and wear masks and the whole thing. Seems like ancient history now. Well, then years go by, and then I've got a new marketing team, and one of the guys said, Introduction to Psychic Development is really boring. It's just a really boring title. Is there something that we can do to spice it up? I said, well, I don't know. What? And he goes, well, what you teach is that in terms of, you know, learning how to be more intuitive, all roads lead to getting you out of your own way. That thinking is overrated and the conscious mind is overrated. And he coined the term, and I'll give him credit. This is Daryl now. He goes, all roads lead to shut the fuck up. All roads in psychic development lead to meditation and listening and getting out of your own way and shutting down the conscious mind and the monkey mind and the chattering. And so that's how it evolved into STFU. And it's cute in popular culture now because there's such a variety of information and that we're exposed to everything. I know that there are things that I just simply don't know. And I know that I work with teenagers and they don't know pop culture references from the 80s, 90s, 2000s. They don't know who Cher is, or they don't know who Madonna is, or they don't know who. And I've got some young folks who don't even know who Taylor Swift is. Got a teenage girl now who's never heard of BTS. So even BTS is becoming passe. Even Taylor Swift is becoming, it's been a year since she was on tour, so she's old news. And so the pop culture kinds of things. And I've had many, well, fewer than 10 people reach out and go, what does STFU stand for? They literally have no idea. Now, I've Googled it. It's very clear if you Google it, it means shut the fuck up. And so it's just a fun way because I really want us to have fun with it, to have fun with getting out of your own way and just tapping into your own intuitive awareness. So that's where that came from.
So, in regards to, we're just gonna conversationalist. In regards to quieting the mind and everything, we are inundated with technology. Um, can you tell us, like, with the advent of social media and advertising and how much we process, is it harder for this generation up and coming to get quieter to access source because of all that information?
It's a great question. Um, I think so. We just had our clinical case conferencing, and the supervisor, who Rocky, was leading the group, and she just turned to me and she said, Dr. Scott, you teach hypnosis and you talk about self-hypnosis and you talk about meditation and quieting the mind, and is that a normal, natural state? And I said, it actually is. If you've ever driven home and not know how you got there and been in a trance where you watched a movie and you're just the passage of time, it's trance. So trance and meditation and quieting the mind is not a weird state. It's a state we actually uh, uh, strive to, really. What is so satisfying about video games is that they get you into that meditative state. It's hand-eye coordination, it's immediate feedback, and it actually, if we were to measure a person engaging in a video game for hours, we would see that their vital signs, their blood pressure goes down, their heart rate goes down. It is a very meditative state, just like exercise, the runner's high. And so when I say meditation or I say hypnosis or quieting the mind, it can be done in an activity. What we look for is the brainwave pattern, and if the brainwave pattern goes into alpha theta, and I'm not going to go into a whole discussion of neurophysiology right now, but the meditative brainwave pattern is called alpha theta. They did a study of an Olympic athlete years ago. They hooked him up to a packet EEG, which is the cap with all the leads on it,
Mhm.
and he happened to be an Olympic archer. And they were it was an experiment, a psychological experiment, and he's standing in the kind of a studio, and he's all hooked up to all these leads, EKG and pulse ox and all these kinds of monitoring devices. And he has his bow and arrow, and he's talking with the researchers, the research assistants, and you can look in real time on the oscilloscope, and it's just a very chaotic beta, kind of brainwave pattern. Chaotic meaning it's the conscious mind. There's a lot going on. It's not a bad wave. It's just a wave, right? And then they say, okay, go ahead and prepare to shoot an arrow into the target down there. They were in some sort of an archery indoor range. And we, as spectators, are watching the oscilloscope, the scope of the brainwave patterns. And while he's talking and just milling around, that's going, like this. And as soon as they said, okay, you may begin, he took a breath and drew back his bow. And the second that he drew back his bow and aimed, the entire brainwave pattern went into an alpha theta, instant, different brainwave pattern, instantly meditative. The same brainwave pattern right before we sleep, the same brainwave pattern that's associated with all the benefits of meditation. Now, whether you call it guided imagery or meditation or visualization or relaxation or hypnotherapy or hypnosis or regression or whatever it is, it's so from my point of view as a scientist, it's that brainwave pattern that is the most therapeutic, where we get the most benefit and restoration done. Now, as soon as he let go of the arrow and it hit its target, there was a pause, one beat. He put his bow down, and the brainwave pattern went back to that chaotic beta rhythm of him just talking with the researchers. But he was so well trained, and I would imagine whether it would be a diver or a golfer or a bowler or a baseball player, I would imagine that is replicated in training in humans everywhere. And so it's really about the brainwave pattern. It's not woo woo. It's not weird. It's just if you can get yourself in, however you get there. So we talked today. What's your, walking in nature? Is it video games? Is it reading or journaling? Is it watching a movie, listening to music? Is it driving? A lot of people love driving. A lot of people it drives them crazy, the road rage and stuff. But a lot of people find great solace in a long drive, like that. So whatever it is for you.
I want to go back actually to the archer. I thought that was a great example. And my question is this, is that similar to the Ring of Power in NLP? So when he's drawing back that
Mm-hmm.
muscle memory, that bodily motion that's triggering his flow state, the Ring of Power.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that that's a
Absolutely.
good comparison?
Yeah, and it's a type of anchor. So to use neurolinguistic programming language, it's a type of anchor. And so whether you touch a knuckle or you associate a particular state of being with a physiological response called an anchor or a chain of anchors or a resource anchor. Ring of Power is a resource anchor, and it's a visualization. And so absolutely same thing, and anybody can do it.
What would you think with everything that you've studied, Ayurvedic, uh, Hawaiian. What is a common thread that you find throughout all of these esoteric woo-woo practices? And how is it showing up in modern day psychology? What once was called, uh, I forget what it's called, animism or something, where we give animism, animism. Um, we used to say, something was woo-woo and
Mhm.
the gods.
Right.
So now how is it incorporated and emerging in psychology?
What I love about where we are in society now is the merging of science and spirituality. And I'm all about science and I'm all about spirituality, and I work in mental health. So it's kind of interesting. Right now, I'm going through the Huna curriculum, and I want to see. I'm going to apply to the boards, the medical board, the psychology board, the nursing board, board of social work, marriage and family therapy, to see if I can teach Huna in such a way that clinicians can get continuing education for it. And there's an exact crossover. We teach mindfulness based stress reduction. We teach diversity and inclusion. We teach esoteric practices. We teach all different kinds of things, but the languaging is a very Western kind, like mindfulness based stress reduction is really
Yeah.
ha breathing. It's really breathing, or the 4-7-8 breathing technique, or the box breathing technique. And so, in terms of let's just using anxiety, we have a lot of techniques that we can teach in session that directly correspond with Huna techniques or meditation techniques or Ayurvedic techniques. The languaging is different, but the behavior is the same. And so there is currently a lot of crossover. And again, from a clinical point of view, I want my patient to feel safe and to do something that they will do. And if it's too weird, it'll just turn them off. And
Mm.
so part of our role as clinicians is to make it as easily as accessible as possible. And if it's too weird, too out there, they can't understand it. It's got too many weird words that can be alienating. And so we do our best. We do our best if you look at the Hawaiian Code of Forgiveness, which is called Ho'oponopono, it's actually been popularized more in the last 10 or 20 years by a number of theorists. Um, Everybody knows the idea of forgiveness. And so even the exercise, while it can have Hawaiian words in it, it can have chanting and things like that. The core exercise is a visualization where you're actually saying to a person in your mind's eye, please forgive me, I forgive you too. There's nothing weird about that. It's hard. People sometimes call it the other F word, forgiveness, because it's like the last thing on the list when you're pissed off at somebody. But it's not weird. And so I think my role is to demystify, translate, make accessible to everyone some of these really great techniques that otherwise could be written off as, oh, that's just too woo woo. And I know people who, I have a client now, a veteran, and man, they are not interested in the woo woo. And they'll come in, and this is very funny. They'll say, "I am not into spirituality. I'm not into the woo woo." And then a couple of sessions later, do you have a recording on anxiety management? Absolutely. Yeah. Or I don't like the word spirituality. Mindfulness is okay. Okay, well then let's use
Mm.
mindfulness. Whatever
Yeah.
works for you. But the tools are similar. And again, it's just about speaking in such a way, if you're a clinician, that can be understood by whoever you're talking to.
Yeah. I know we talked about Huna. We talked about a little bit about Ayurvedic and how there's a through line amongst all these different cultures, such as like the chakra system. Don't the Hawaiians have a chakra
Yep.
system that
Yep.
mirrors
They do.
Chinese?
Yeah. And so the three schools that I'm kind of hovering around, the Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic, which is India, and Huna, which is Hawaii. And if you've studied Reiki or Chinese medicine, the meridian system, if you study Ayurvedics and the chakra system, and these are common words now. The Hawaiian tradition had moku. Moku literally means island, and it means islands of energy, in your body. And they corresponded very closely to the Ayurvedic system. Now, when you think about it, indigenous peoples came up all over the world. They didn't have the internet, they didn't have phones, and they came up with many of the same theories thousands of years and thousands of miles apart. And so we see now, because we do see everything, that there were commonalities and common themes in many of those teachings in indigenous. And then we recently learned, I'm going to say in the last 10 years, that we have in the Hawaiian tradition these symbols that are called opua. And my teacher, Kumu-Kast, met with a Native Canadian chief, and I may get the exactness of the story wrong, but basically they have a symbol or an energy for clearing spaces. You know how in some trick techniques there are like smudging ceremonies or saging where you'll try to, people will light incense and clear a space, that kind of thing. Well, this particular Native American tradition has a symbol or an energy for it. I don't even know if they have a symbol, quite frankly. We have a symbol for it. It's a graphical representation, and you draw it and you send it in our tradition, and it's the exact same energy. And so these two, Matt and this Native Canadian chief, compared notes and said, "Oh yeah, we." He asked Kumu-Kast, he said, "Would you send me that energy just so I can feel it?" And he did. And the chief or shaman basically said, "Oh, that's the same energy. We have different words for it. We have a different symbol for it, but it is the same energy." And when you think about it, whether, and I'm just using gravity as an example, gravity exists. We call it gravity. Some other culture might call it something else. We have God and Jesus, and other cultures call that source level energy something else. The Buddhists call it the mystic law, the Hawaiians call it Keawe, and so on. And uh, there's what I'm learning in my studies is that there's a lot more commonality than difference at a certain level, that we're not as different as all that, and that there's so many ways that we're connected.
I do want to touch on, since we're talking about various religions, I myself grew up very Pentecostal Christian, which is more literalist interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as I've gotten older and explored other modalities, I've adapted different belief systems. My question is, how did you, because you grew up very religious as well, Judeo-Christian, how did you overcome the stigma and break into being open to these other modalities? Because for me, this was all witchcraft. So
Well,
how did
sure,
you
sure, sure.
overcome
Oh,
that?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So I grew up Lutheran, and
Okay.
in high school, early high school, I became a born again Christian. I joined what was called the Jesus People Church uh, in Minneapolis, and I gave my life to Jesus Christ. I accepted him as my personal savior. And funny story, I I was a pretty smart kid, and I started to see Lutheran is pretty middle of the road. It's not super evangelical. It's not super extreme.
Baptist.
The Jesus People Church was, I don't know if they called it Pentecostal. I think it was of a Southern Baptist tradition. So they would have the speaking in tongues and the rolling in the aisles and hallelujah and really entertaining church services and all that. A lot of rules, dogma, a lot of that kind of stuff. And of course, being a teenager and coming up as I was, I started to realize all the ways that I was going to burn in hell for all the thoughts I was having.
Mm.
Now, I wasn't having thoughts that any other teenage boy wasn't having, but I was starting to get all that stuff, the guilt and about the sex and the drugs and the rock and roll and oh my God, and starting to reconcile that. I went to Germany as a foreign exchange student. In fact, this was 50 years ago, 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I celebrated my 50-year anniversary of becoming Buddhist.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
that was August 5th, 1976. And I was a foreign exchange student coming from a very Midwestern, very conservative place in Minnesota to Germany, a pretty big town in Germany, actually. And I got exposed to Buddhism. It's a long story. And I was captivated and interested about it. Um, and then it started to open my eyes to other ways of thinking and other ways of being. And then um, realized that there's the religion, the dogma, the organization, the rules, the regulations, all that sort of thing. And then there's spirituality. And I started to make the distinction: what is the difference between a religion and those rules and spirituality, which is your own personal relationship. Now, some people meld them very well. I did not. I really was a rule follower and really thought, I've got to do it exactly this way, whatever the church,
Yeah.
said. And so it took me many years to reconcile that I can be spiritual and religious at the same time, and that they don't necessarily have to look exactly the same. So I think people are seeking and looking for ways that are spiritually free, which I think is really awesome.
I've wanted to ask this. What's it like to die? And since you have been to the other side, um, has that changed your perspective and relationship with death?
It really has. And there are so many, what I'm so happy about. And sometimes when I'm having a bad day, I will kind of look at some of those near death experiences because I do recall fondly my time on the other side. It was brief, but I do really, um, I remember it's everything that you see. So you don't use and I've not necessarily recorded my experience, but there are so many, I mean, thousands and thousands of reports of crossing over to the other side. There are books by Sylvia Browne and others that talk about what the other side is like, about what that dimension is like, what that vibration is like. And they're pretty consistent, the reports are pretty consistent throughout the literature. And I had that experience, and it is on some rough days, it looks really appealing. And I remember when I crossed over, I'd had a bad ski accident with a head injury, and I astral projected and looked on my body, and I did cross over. And I was met by beings. Now, I didn't meet, my joke is I didn't meet Aunt Tilly or my mom or dad or anybody that I knew, but I
Mhm.
met loving beings. And people say, what do they look like? Well, they look like seedlings of light. They weren't like anthropomorphized, meaning they didn't look like, it's hard to describe. They looked like seedlings of light, but they had some vague features that were identifiable, but it wasn't about that. It wasn't about their outfits or that they were
Right.
very loving beings. And I remember them saying, this is an opportunity you have to stay here and be home and not go back to your body, or you can go to your body. And I remember a couple of things. I remember being not ready to make that decision. I said, do I have to decide now? And they said, yeah, you kind of need to decide now. And I said, if I decide now, that means that I don't go back in the body, which makes it means I die. And they said, yeah. And then I said, but what if I don't believe I'm done? Well, that's your choice. Now, understand, there was no pressure. It wasn't this is what we need you to do. There very much was a facilitated, this is what you need to decide. Nobody can decide this for you. And we need to let you know that if you go back, the exact words, it's going to suck for a while. And I remember that language. It's going to suck for a while. Your body's going to be broken. You're going to have a lot of health problems. And as long as you understand that you're at kind of a crossroads, this is an exit point for you. You can come back in the body, or you can stay here with us and make your transition to the other side. Now, I don't get a sense and know about where exactly, what department I was in. It's not like that, but time doesn't exist. It felt like a long time, like I was there for hours, but in the actual uh, chronological time, it was only a few minutes. Um, and I decided to come back. And it sucked for a while. And for those of you that know my history, 2015, the ski accident, 2017, stage 4 cancer, years and years of 9 surgeries and chemotherapy and immunotherapy. And here I am, 8 years in remission. And it did suck for a while. They weren't wrong. I don't regret it. I'm glad I'm here, but it sucked. So, but the feeling is everything they say. It's unconditional love. It's divine love. There is no stress. There is no negativity, and it feels just so great, And so when days get a little rough here, I totally get it. Like why people say, "Oh God," I just can't I just. So I will do kind of a meditation, or I'll do, I'll watch a YouTube video on near death experience to try to recapture that, because it's pretty awesome, man, to not have a physical body. It's pretty awesome to not be in pain. It's pretty awesome to have nothing but love and be surrounded by light. It's a different experience. Now, full circle, we're here to learn. We're here in these bodies on this plane to learn and to polish ourselves to be closer to our creator. And that's why we do this. And so there is purpose in our lives. There's a reason why we're here, and there's a reason why we're going through the challenges that we go through. It's easy to say, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm interested because I don't know if you know Michael Newton.
Oh
He
yeah,
did Life
life
Between
between
Lives.
lives. Mhm.
And because you said we're here to learn, it made me think of, the concept of Earth as a school, as like a
Right,
lower
right.
denser vibration. But
Yeah,
Michael Newton and others that delve into that hypnotherapy space have described on the schools on the other side. And do you think that's more like an archetype that our conscious mind, that's the only way we can perceive it, or are there like literal establishments or schools or you know hierarchy on the other side?
I don't know. I have ideas, and I've certainly done a lot of reading. I have guides that I speak to, and I certainly do a lot of translating for people. And my sense is that the other side is not as different than we think it is, and it's not far away. It's just a different vibrational level. And when I do this, I mean, it's just like 5 feet above us, and it looks very similar to what we have here. And that there are times when I've spoken to dead relatives and spirit guides and things, and they're busy doing other things. They have interests, they have activities. Time doesn't exist, and so it's they're able to buy and try locate and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I believe my just my own personal belief that souls evolve and they continue to evolve, and they want to evolve. They want to learn. And so it wouldn't surprise me that on the other side that there are schools and things that we do.
Well, I like that concept, the forever learning to be closer to source. Insert your name here. um Something I've been struggling with, and maybe you can help me out, either it's spiritually or even from a clinical standpoint, is how as individuals can we acknowledge our own growth? How can we compare and contrast to see how far we've come?
Also, a great question. We are not objective about ourselves. We live in these bodies. We don't see ourselves as others see us. And I think it is important, especially when you're going through a hard time, to acknowledge. And this is what I do for a living all day long. I mean, I would meet with clients and they make great progress. And a lot of times they'll come into session and just be really demoralized, like, oh, this just really sucks, or I'm having a really hard time now. And I'm the one that has to mirror back to them, well, wait a minute. A year ago when we started this, you were having 5 panic attacks a day. Wait a minute. A year ago, you were drinking alcohol and you're sober. Wait a minute. A year ago, you weren't speaking to your kids and now you are. Wait a minute. A year ago, you were unemployed and now you've got a job. And I do play a little dumb, like, what are you talking about? What do you? And they'll stop and they'll go, well, yeah, that's all true. And here's the next thing I want to do. So that's okay, but can we just take a breath here and acknowledge the progress? And I think that it is difficult for us all, for me too. You've commented, you've sent me pictures. For those of you that don't know, I've lost a lot of weight. I've lost 150 pounds in the last 3 years. And every once in a while, Josh will send me a picture of me at 350 pounds. And I go, whoa. Like even I will look at myself and go, wow, that's such a huge transformation. I don't feel it every day in my body. I look at, okay, what's the next goal? What's the next goal? And I think that's human nature. I think it's just the way we're wired. What's next for me?
Well, as we speaking of moving next, and we touched on the concept of like technology and how it's a blessing and a curse. There's this kind of phenomena of AI therapists.
Mm,
It's this generation's WebMD where you diagnose yourself with cancer at 2 a.m.
mhm.
Is that more harmful than good from a clinical perspective, in your opinion?
Well, we have some documented cases in Nevada. I know Nevada, probably a year and a half ago now, has outlawed AI therapy very categorically because there were a couple of cases where teenagers went online and said, this is what I'm experiencing. I really feel like I should kill myself. And the AI generator said, yep, if I was in your position, I think I would too. and then they listed out ways to kill themselves. And I think there were two cases where kids actually did took an overdose or hung themselves or something like that. So it's very poignant. To answer your question, I'm not worried about being replaced. I think that there is something to be said for the human connection and the human condition. I think I use AI every day, and I think it's really great for pretty mundane tasks, writing letters and doing policies and procedures and, creating handouts and creating, all sorts of things. I think it's really saving us a lot of time. I work with a lot of physicians, and one surgeons group has been using AI in the operating room. It's saving hours of charting time. It's really brilliant. Meaning, doctor goes in, appendicitis, let's say, there's microphones and cameras around the operating room, and patient is signed a consent to be photographed, during surgery, no big deal. And by the time the surgery is over and the doctor walks back to the uh, office or the nursing station, the chart's done, the note's done. He or she has to review it. Obviously, it's still his or her accountability to write an excellent chart note. What I'm noting in our meeting notes and our chart notes clinically is that they're very good. They're really much better than I would do. They're much more detailed than I would do. And they are hitting all the bases. And I still don't believe that AI replaces therapy. And I think it is dangerous to use AI, just like, you use the great example of WebMD. Everybody at 3 in the morning's got cancer and is going to die and has a brain tumor. AI is like that. AI was saying, well, gee, I lost my girlfriend and I'm got this and that and the other thing, and I'm broke and I don't have a job. Yeah, that sucks. I'd probably kill myself too. That's what you get from AI. So I don't really trust it. I don't think it replaces human consciousness or human connection. I don't think it ever will.
No, speaking of human connection, though, honest talk, what the hell happened post 2020? Pandemic, we started working from home, but the social norms, there's just no grace. There doesn't seem to be any sort of familiarity or um, people are just different. Is that your experience clinically, personally? What was the light switch? What was the catalyst? Well, I mean, we know the catalyst, but what have you seen?
Well, I think we're coming full circle. We're in this clinic, and we went to telehealth during COVID, as everyone did, and then we've come back. And I'm going to say we only do about 5% telehealth now, and we have some boundaries around it. Um, I don't do telehealth with kids, little kids, because it doesn't work because they can't sit still anyway. So we have rules about we want to be effective, and but for some people, it's a lifesaver. We have a veterans program where many of the veterans live out in rural areas. They can't get here. They don't have transportation. It's too far. And so they're able to connect with their community of patients here and get medication and get therapy. And it is, I don't want to say it's better than nothing. It's actually really good because they can handle it and they can process it. So I don't want to write it off like it's all a bad thing. Just like remote work, we went through a lot of remote work, and there are philosophies that say that people can be just as productive working from home as they are working in the office. There are people who miss being in the office. They miss the camaraderie. They don't, they just. For me, I have an office and I have a home and I travel a great deal. I like coming into the office. I wouldn't want to do only remote work, but that's just me. So I think we're coming full circle. I think it's great that we're able to do this kind of a thing, and it has gotten much easier to communicate over these platforms. And I love social media. I mean, like anything else, I love watching my YouTube videos and kind of get going down a rabbit hole of
K-pop.
something. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't think there's anything
Um,
wrong. I think we're evolving.
well, there's science. Isn't there studies that say that ADHD is the next logical conscious evolution to be able to
Hmm.
process that much more information?
Absolutely.
Um, I know, speaking of like going to the workplace and everything, I have a morning routine, and my boss hates it because I'm sending him messages at 5:58 in the morning. Now, I prepare on Mondays. What's a good way to start the week mentally? Meaning, like, how do you encourage individuals to approach Monday to shift their focus from having a case of the Mondays to welcoming the Mondays?
Well, I think, my bias is always a meditative practice or a foundational daily practice. And so I think quieting, we talked earlier about STFU and
Yeah.
shutting the fuck up, I think is just really having being purposeful and intentional. And rather than diving right into conscious mind worky stuff, doing some exercise, getting in nature, meditation, journaling, gratitude practice, breathing, Tai Chi, yoga, exercise, whatever it is, for at least 30 to 40 minutes before you start your day. And I think setting your intention for the week is really good. Setting your intention to have a good week and all that, I think is really important. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's not about the time, it is about um, being purposeful and intentional about your work.
And how do you end the week? Because a lot of times, whether it's hybrid work or anything, work follows us home.
Mhm.
How do you suggest that your others, or what do you do yourself to capstone on Friday? How do you like leave it at the door?
I do more, decompression things. Now I've got some pretty strong boundaries these days around, legally I am on call for the clinic. Thankfully, knock on wood, I don't get many emergency calls. I do get some, but that's my accountability. So if somebody's having a crisis in the middle of the night, I get called and we hospitalize and we do what we need to do. But I'm going to say, knock on wood, that I don't get a lot of those. And then the other thing, I try to separate myself from my phone. And so I will just turn my phone off for extended periods of time. And it upsets some people, they can't reach me. I don't want to be reachable every minute of every day, and I want to. So Friday, in the afternoon, I'll go home and I'll transition uh, by changing clothes, as we used to say, get out of my school clothes, and I will do some sort of an activity. I'll watch a movie or I'll do some exercise but I want to transition out of it. And I am not as responsive or interested in. There are several places where I refuse to work. I don't work on airplanes. My airplane time is my quiet time. I have headphones, I have meditative things, podcasts, things I listen to. I don't typically, I have very, at the risk of being overly rigid, I have times for work and times for play. And I mean, while I will be responsive to people in need or in crisis, I have given feedback to patients and interns and students alike that, Sunday at 3 in the morning, why are you calling me? Oh, well, it just occurred to me. Okay, well, don't do that. That's disrespectful. Just because it occurred to you at Sunday at 3 in the morning, it's not okay. Let it go to voicemail. Yeah, I will, and I did, and I'm not going to answer it. And I'm certainly not going to call you back. It's rude and disrespectful to not respect my time. And just because it occurs to you at Friday or Sunday at 3 in the morning doesn't mean you have permission, to call. And so people are pretty respectful once you set your boundaries, where the line is.
Well, how do you know you're setting boundaries or just, using it to as an excuse to be an asshole? It's like you're not just the Aries, Karen. You're a bitch. Like, uh, how do you navigate that?
Well, I'm not an asshole, and
No, no.
I don't no, and I mean I pride myself in being kind, but you can be kind and have boundaries. I think the challenge for me has always been, how do you manage your resentment when you're feeling resentful and not lose your mind, vomit green slime, and be mindful of setting a loving boundary. You know, I have a current intern who thinks we're friends, and we're not friends. And they
Mhm.
will call me at all hours of the day and night. And so I've just had to say, you need to stop calling me. Well, it's just easier for me to leave you a voicemail. No, it's not easier for me, and I don't care that I don't want you calling me. Write it up, bring it to supervision. Just like I would say to a client who thinks they should text me and email me and call me between sessions with, every little thing. No, I'm not an emergency therapist. I'm your therapist. You come in once a week, save it up. You have a dream you want interpreted, write it down, bring it to session. That's what we do. I don't think that's being an asshole. It's just having a boundary.
Sometimes it's hard to navigate because I think people use it as a crutch. I have. We talked about Huna before. Wh- So there's four levels to my understanding, like 4A, 4B, but you teach one, two, and just wrapped up a three. So what is
Yeah,
like what's in each
it's a great
one and how do they
question.
piggyback off of each other?
So Huna in Hawaii is a very large school, and that's where I went to school, and that's where I became a kumu or a teacher. I am now just recently gotten permission from that school to teach level three. So I teach levels one, two, three. One is obviously, sorry, one is the first level. It's the introductory level. All the classes are about the same length, meaning if you go to Hawaii, they're 9 days. Level one's 9 days, level two is 9 days, level three is 10 days. Level 4A, which is the assisting level, I think is 13, 14 days, and so on. It goes up from there. Level one is introduction to Huna and all the basic elements and all the basic practices for yourself. So it's a class about self-healing and self-preservation and self-management. And you learn, the forgiveness exercise, Ho'oponopono, the release of baggage exercise, a higher self exercise, elements. You learn building blocks of energy. You learn all sorts of wonderful things at a very basic introductory level. Uh, we usually insist that students wait 6 months before coming back to level two. Level two, as I said, in Hawaii is 9 days, and it includes the refresher of all the level one content. Then we add new content around prayer, pule, energetic goal setting, getting spirit guides, more in terms of working with others with these tools and techniques. You get more of those symbols I mentioned. You get some at level one, more at level two. You learn chanting and the whole idea of vibrational medicine and how vibration works. And the intention, if level one is about yourself, level two is about one other person helping, like if you're a clinician helping one other person. Level three takes it a step further, reviews all standard practices, and expands into the community. So you're looking at energy work, you're looking at organizational work, you're looking at communities, at groups, from a teaching perspective, from an energetic perspective, you're learning more advanced techniques around how to handle those spirit guides that you get. You learn how to do an advanced form of energetic goal setting like Pule. Um, and you learn a lot more about your own psychic, intuitive awareness, about sending thought forms, understanding how to use the symbols, the opua, to assist you in that spiritual realm, if you will. And then level four, once you've completed level three, you must go to Hawaii because level four is only offered in Hawaii, and it is the advanced techniques, and those span through all over the place. And so you start with level 4A in Hawaii, which is the assisting level where you spend, now let me think of about, I think it's about 12 days. And you do that and help behind the scenes. And then starts level four. And level four is an ongoing development program for advanced practitioners. And there are level fours that have been going for 25 years, 30 years. I've been going for 20 years. And the joke is you don't get it yet. You have to keep coming back. And so it's a joke. But that's in a nutshell. You can do it in Japan, you can do it in the UK, you can do it with me on the mainland, you can do it with Kumu-Kast on the mainland, you can do it in Hawaii, and there are all of the levels, and they're pretty equally. It's the same curriculum, just done a little different way.
Hi, Riley. So we are talking. It's nice to see you. Um, we're going around, and I want to ask Patrick first. Well, I guess we're starting to go around. What made Huna real for you? When did it become, holy shit, this is real? This is not placebo effect. This is not wishful thinking, but when did it solidify? Like, did you have a moment that you can point to?
Yeah, after level two, I wasn't, when I was in level two, I wasn't feeling it. A lot of my colleagues, my classmates were having energetic awarenesses and seeing things and feeling things that I wasn't. And so I remember going up to Kuma Matt and saying, not feeling it. And he said, well, set a goal. Why don't you set a goal, do a pule, which is the word for prayer or goal setting, that you have an undeniable experience of the energy. And you know the story I've told about my luggage. And so basically I said, okay, one of the weirdest things that is a pattern for me is the airlines invariably will lose my luggage, and I'll arrive somewhere in my, I'll arrive in Las Vegas and my suitcase is in Thailand. And almost as an afterthought, I set an energetic goal that I was going to use these spirit guides to make sure that not only, and this is a ridiculous request, that not only was my luggage got to Las Vegas, but it was first off the carousel. I had two bags. It was going to be first and second off the carousel, and that I would not be delayed in any way. So I'd forgotten about the poulet. I got to Las Vegas, and sure enough, first and second bags were mine. They rolled down the thing and they presented themselves almost as if to say, see, prayer works, goal setting works. And then the whole carousel shut down and no one else got their bags for 4 hours. And I knew that because there were other students, friends of mine that were on that plane. So not only, it was almost like slap. It was like, well, wait a minute. This really, I couldn't deny it. I couldn't write it off as coincidence. I was very clear about my intention. I was almost laughing about the implication that really, who do I think I am? I can actually influence my luggage coming off the carousel. And then it happened exactly as I foretold it. Um, and that was a turning point for me. So I went back to level three, and that's when I started to open up to the energy and started becoming more intuitive and aware, and believing that, wow, this stuff is real.
Well, I know you've talked about the core issue is quieting the mind. All
Mhm.
roads lead to quieting up the mind to shutting the fuck up. Um, I think you just wrapped up cohort number six.
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 Yep.
Um, what exactly is that? The STFU coaching
Coaching.
cohort.
Yeah. Yeah. So teaching this class, gosh, since 2020. It's a 2-day class on learning intuitive techniques, how to be more psychic, how to build on what you're already doing. And then out of that class was a request to keep the skills going. And so we form a cohort, a group that is a closed group. And, 12, no more than 12 to 15 students meet with me twice a month. And then they meet with a peer coach. So they meet 3 times a month, three 90-minute segments a month to really practice the skills and practice um, learning and how to use these intuitive gifts and these intuitive things, about readings and clearings and energetic healing and all sorts of different things. And so the STFU coaching is just it's a 6-month program, closed ended group 3 times a month. And we've had six. We just graduated the last cohort number six, and very powerful, very fun. They just love each other and they stay in touch, and it's a very bonding experience. It's a lot of fun for me too.
It's like a summer camp.
It's
Um,
camp. Yeah, it's Spirit Camp online.
Spirit camp. You
It's all
should
online. Yeah, Spirit Camp online.
trademark it. Well, we do have Kumu-Kast. This will be the the first. Well, not the first. Um, what about Ho'oku? Because I know you do that. How is that different? It's from the same lineage of Huna and Ho'oponopono, but how is that different? What are the benefits of Ho'oku?
Ho'oku means to make release. And so while Ho'oponopono, which is more famous, is the forgiveness exercise, Ho'oku is about letting go of negative emotions and limiting beliefs, limiting decisions, core wounds, internal conflicts. And so it's a technique where we ask the unconscious mind to light up and make available any negativity no longer needed by the body. Then we ask the higher self to come down, and remove the negativity. And it's very powerful. I just did it last night actually with a group about 25, and it can be done online, it can be done in person. It's a very powerful exercise for releasing negativity no longer needed by the body.
Okay. Um, and I think we have it downloading on the website. I will have to double check, or it's in our welcome newsletter packet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a free download to just take a sample of it.
Yes, if you go to drpatrickscott.com.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Areli, I'm going to use this to splice it up. We've been kind of conversational. What is a convincer? What made you What convinced you that Huna was real or STFU?
Okay, so something, it's so cool. I've been into, please forgive me, I'm also at a resort right now, which is actually another thing of my manifestation, how Huna is for me because I'm getting paid to be here and I'm just hanging out. Um, so one really cool thing after level three that just happened, I started to notice how energetically I tapped in I am and how frequently I've been creating things like showing up so fast in my reality. So as soon as level three ended, I mean, day one of level three, I got a new car. And that
Oh,
was like, oh, okay, cool. It was delivered to me at the training. And that was really cool to like notice those things are like coming in. And then another cool thing that happened right after level three was I was imagining, okay, so this is like fun fact. I was at the gym and I was seeing myself in this pink. Mommy, what are you doing? 1 second, okay? What are you doing? I was imagining myself. I kept seeing this pink outfit that I was wearing at the gym. I was like, oh, I really want to get this pink workout set, and I like let it go, forgot about it. And this is a really cool class because Lisette taught us Pule how you assume, like you let it go as fast as you can. And then while I was imagining myself in this pink set, I just forgot about it. Went home, and my one of my good friends was like wearing this pink shorts that I just saw myself in, and she was like, "I got the wrong size. These are for you." Gave me the whole set that I was just imagining myself wearing, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is Huna!" Like it just kind of hit me, literally the image, and I wore that outfit the rest of that day. And I was just like, this is exactly what Pule Lisette was talking about. How you just think about it, let it go, and then it appears. So that was like a really cool evidence for me.
nice. Um, Patrick, in closing, I kind of want to get something from you. What would you say, what advice would you give us on A, how to navigate these times, whether that's geographically, with other interpersonal relationships? Um, what can you say that would give us hope? Because it seems as some people are struggling and you are a beacon of light.
Um, I think to take 100%, this is hard, 100% responsibility for everything that happens to you as a stimulation for your growth. And that no, we don't grow when we aren't challenged. Steel is forged through tempering and fire. And you become and have a diamond like resilience because of the challenges that you go through. It's hard during them, you know, when I went to the other side and they said, if you want to stay, you can. It's going to suck for a while. And I remember as it sucked for like 3 years, 3 solid years of suckage, meaning pain and surgeries and chemo and bald head and, horrible stuff. I just had to remind myself, that there's got to be a purpose to this. There's got to be a reason why I'm going through all this. There's got to be a reason why I stayed. And I get feedback now from students that will say to me, "Thanks for staying. So glad you stayed, because you're making a difference." And so um, it feels like it's little consolation when we're really going through it, but each of the challenges is a chance to dig deep and to look at our patterns and themes and trends and to overturn those old conditions and really let go of trauma. All of us have trauma. All humans that I've ever met have stuff to work on. And when you don't have any stuff to work on, apparently it's time to transition because you're really never done while you're in a body. So that's number one. Number two, I would let go of the expectation that everything, and this is, I think, in our microwave society, let go of the expectation that anything that I want should be easy, comfortable, risk free, guaranteed, overnight, trouble free, convenient, comfortable, and so on. That anything worth having is worth working for and worth challenging yourself and digging deep. Now, the flip side of that is self care. That we can't be all things to all people. And so I don't have an answer. I haven't found it yet. I'll let you know. But that there is something about caring for yourself at least as much as you're caring for others, and that's the taking 100% responsibility for your life condition, for your mood, for your health. That it's so easy to blame, and it's so fun to blame. Well, it's not my fault. It's the cheesecake's fault, or it's not my fault with my genetics, or it's not my fault I inherited this. You did, and nobody can fix it but you. And so I know that's probably not comforting, but I'm here to tell you that when you do empower yourself to take 100% responsibility for everything, you have more control. You have more influence over your life. As long as you're attributing your power out there, they have the power.
Yeah,
And so I hope that helps.
it does. We grow at the boundaries, as someone once told me. Well, I thank you for your time. Look forward to next week and signing off, Kumu-Kast version 1.
Thank you. Love you all.